War Report family, it's your boy Mike G here with B. Wilt and Caesar. Brian Harsin just finished his first introductory press conference as Auburn University's brand new football coach. So let's get right into this. I want to talk to you guys about what we heard and what we didn't hear and what we want to hear. Caesar, I'm going to start with you. What did you hear from Mr. Harsin today?
Nothing out the realm of normal coach speak, really, to be honest with you. And it just seemed to me that the reporters were already in vacation mode, because even the questions that were prying for these guys to get answers out of this guy, they were not really great questions. But he seems calculated. He seems like an even-keeled guy. He doesn't seem like a guy who runs heavy on emotion. So again, he seems personal. Obviously, this guy has spent 14 years apart from being a player. He spent 14 years at Boise. So we saw a lot of that emotions from him and how tough of a decision that was leaving Boise. But again, a lot will be determined in the coming days and weeks. But I think he said what he was supposed to. He mentioned some things that we'll touch on. But for the most part, I think Auburn fans were excited to see him, to hear him speak, and I think he did what he was supposed to do.
Brian, what did you hear?
Yeah, I mean, Caesar gathered everything that could be gathered from that press conference, because he didn't really say much of anything. I guess the only thing that you really look to get from this is, what is his attitude kind of going to be like? What is his demeanor going to be like? And how does that translate to what type of coach he is? He seems to kind of be a nose to the grindstone kind of coach. And I don't think Malzahn was that type of coach. And I know Chizik wasn't that type of coach. And maybe that's part of what was missing here. We had some assistant coaches who were more like that, particularly on the defensive end. But we have not had a top-down philosophy of toughness when it came from our football coach. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play with the recruits that are just coming in, because that's different from what asked them to come here. I'm interested to see what that's going to play like with the people who are already here, because we got some juniors who could hit that transfer portal or go ahead and jump to the NFL if they wanted to. So
right.
That philosophy is good. But aside from that, like Caesar said, he was a little sentimental, when they asked him about Boise, when he brought it up. I mean, and rightfully so. You spend half your adult life somewhere. I don't know how else you would be. That's close to him, and that's been his home for a long time. But couldn't get any more than that. The big questions are still kind of up in the air, and I guess we'll learn more about that as we go on.
Yeah, for me, nothing he said in this press conference mattered until he started talking about player development. And I'm gonna go ahead and say this: these reporters did an extremely poor job of asking any questions that mattered. Like, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't ask him how he liked his coffee and what his dog's name was. Like, what? We don't care. Who are you going to hire as an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, right? Yeah. What kind of system are you going to run? Are you going to change the brand of football? We know that he runs a pro-style attack, but you've got spread, hurry up, no huddle type guys. What are you going to do with that? Do you already have a plan for how to get these guys in position in year one to win immediately?
Yeah,
none of those questions got asked. I thought this was a waste of time on Christmas Eve. But what I did hear that I liked, I like that, not with his words, but with his demeanor, he gave off a sense that we are going to be a tough football team. He came off as a really tough, hard-nosed, blue-collar type guy to me. And I think our team has been missing that in some ways, under the previous coach. I'm going to stop saying his name here because we moved on. And I thought he gave off that persona. I thought he gave off that aura today. I liked that. I liked how he answered the question about Bama. If you watch us, it's been a topic of discussion on our show. Did not being able to beat Saban cost Gus his job? I don't think it did. I like that he has an attitude that the Iron Bowl is another game on the schedule. Now, we all know it's important. It's important for us, for Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas holidays to be able to say we beat you to family and friends. you know, over the holidays. But ultimately, as it pertains to the success of the program, beating Bama is just another step of 12 in the regular season games in the process.
Right.
So it's nice if you beat them, but it's not your ultimate measure of success, because you can't have a successful season without beating them. So I liked his answer to that question. But really, what I want to spend most of the segment talking about is, in terms of player development. After he started talking about that, he said player development 30 times. I loved it. I was eating it up. I'm like, yes, this guy at least understands that you have to recruit. He talked about the importance of recruiting, but if you can't develop the guys that you bring in, none of it matters.
Right. All right. And he basically equated that to winning. Like, if we're going to win, these kids have to develop. You know, if we're going to play a championship brand of football, these kids have to be developed, right? And again, it's refreshing because we've done a great job of recruiting at Auburn. Auburn is a university that sells itself. You get a lot of these kids on campus, they don't want to leave.
Right.
But when it comes time for them to leave, whether it be for the draft or graduation, are they a better player leaving than they were when they got there? And so he emphasized a lot of that. And yes, to your point, Mike, that really resonated. And that's something that I look forward to seeing with the kids we have on campus, as well as the ones who will be here in the future.
Yeah. B, what do you think about recruiting? Like, do you think that, because I'll give you my opinion, then I'll let you go, right? I really think that I haven't been hyper focused on recruiting. I know it's important, but we have recruited well, so I expect him to recruit well. I don't expect him to do worse than the last coaching staff. I expect him to maintain the status quo. But in terms of recruiting, how do you think, if you're recruiting, you're watching this, do you feel good about Auburn, or are you iffy?
Well, I think it depends on which side of the ball you're on. If you were an offensive recruit and we had been coming after you a little bit, then your ears are going to perk up knowing that he came from Boise and knowing that they've got offensive talent in the league. Like, when I remember when he was telling that Bo Jackson story, he said, and one of our guys who was our fastest player at the time, he's playing for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. There you go. You know, plug that development, that you got a fast guy that's now playing for the Eagles. I think that it's going to be more about offensively, can you put me in the league? Because you might be able to feature me. Hey, I mean, Seth Williams has been a feature wide receiver since he stepped foot on the field here, but he hasn't gotten any better.
Right.
If he's preaching development and improvement, I think that's going to be enticing to some guys, along with, can I star here? Can I feature here? But I don't think we really know what his offense is. I don't think recruits here will know what his offenses look like. The fan base at large doesn't know what his offenses look like. So there's going to be a lot of questions. And I think the slate is going to be wiped clean as far as Auburn's reputation for offensive players. And the first 2 or 3 classes that he gets to bring in, kind of sort of counting this one, but I mean, we've had a lot of offensive recruits commit already, and they were recruited and getting recruited by Gus and Chad Morris. So we'll get to flip the switch here. Really, 2021, the year, and the 2022 signing class will be his first foray. And it's really going to come down to, does he have the assistant coaches who have those relationships? Because he talked about building those relationships, which is with, you know, high schools and people who put on camps. He has to build those relationships here, and he doesn't have any of them. He needs somebody who knows the lay of the land here. Who he puts on his staff that knows it is going to be critical. I think his system and the success of his players at Boise will be a gain as far as with recruits, but we will lose some ground just for a lack of familiarity with this coaching staff and our head coach. So right now it's like a 50-50. How is that going to go? Who are you going to put on there who can give you that first connection to that family or to that high school program? And you can go in and say, well, here's what your numbers are going to look like under me. Here's how I'm going to feature you because I've seen your tape and I think you look great. And here's what I would do with you. Gus was able to do that. But when it came down to the top tier talent, he couldn't convince them because they had seen enough. He could not say, I'm going to get you to the league as a top 10 prospect, as a top 20 prospect first round. He could not say that because his offenses didn't do that for anybody. But this guy will have that opportunity. And man, with the recruiting ground that we've got, we're fertile down here. There's a good chance he could go out and really put together some firebomb classes. The thing that you got to worry about, and I think that we're all worried about, which is why we were all pro Steele for a little while, as him staying on staff before all the nonsense came out about what happened behind the scenes, is, man, we have been killing it on the defensive end. The defensive assistants, head Kevin Steele as a defensive coordinator, just, X's and O's, they have been killing it. Are we pressing the reset button on the defensive end? Or is there somebody he can get who can maintain all the interest that we've gotten from recruits so far and then continue that momentum? And that's the big question. And like you said, we don't really know that from this press conference, but the first step will be who's going to be on the staff, and that'll start to answer that question.
Yeah, it underscores how shocking it is that not a single reporter asked that question. I was blown away, right? Yeah. However, sticking with recruiting here, what I don't think is getting talked about enough is that he's been recruiting California for the last since 2014.
Right.
And for what maybe with the relationships he has, he can get into. That's also very fertile recruiting ground.
Right.
He can get into California and pluck a guy or two out, because we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show that the cupboards are not bare. He's not walking into a situation where there's no talent.
Right.
He can win this year. And I heard him say that during the press conference. We're here to win now. And that's important for us to hear as fans, because nobody was excited about a rebuild. Nobody. Yeah. I think that this hire underscores that the administration really felt like it's just leadership and not everything else.
Right.
So you change the leadership and you get somebody who can come in and reorganize and put everybody, coaching, and players in a better position to win. And you can win immediately. So, we've seen coaches come into Auburn and do it. I think that I'll be excited to see during recruiting if we get some unusual names off of the West Coast to help bolster this class. And they're thinking, oh, he was recruiting me while I was at Boise State, but now this guy is at Auburn in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were choosing between him and anybody else that he would have been recruiting against, any of the bigger names on the West Coast like Oregon or USC, or Stanford, he can say, hey, listen, I maybe go down to Auburn and play in what is the best college football TV market against the best of the best every Saturday. So if he just gets a couple of highly rated recruits just on the strength of that connection, I think this recruiting class will have been a success for him.
Yeah,
right? I really do believe that. So, he talked about the importance of winning. He talked about recruiting, which we're very happy to hear. And he didn't talk about what his plans are. I'm almost amazed that he just didn't go into it, even though nobody asked. So how soon do we expect to have answers about OC and DC? Like, is it fair to make that decision? Our bowl game is in 7 days, 8 days, right? Should we expect to hear something before the Citrus Bowl or after in terms of staff? And my question to you guys is that does that hurt us in recruiting to wait another 8 days to announce what direction you're going rather than doing it now? Caesar, I'll start with you.
I don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts, but just because there's so much transition going on. And I think with a coaching staff, with a new coach coming in, he's going to hire guys who's going to preach the vision of the football program going forward. So when you bring in your guys, that's just going to help basically get into kids and let them know this is where Coach Harsin wants to go. Right. This is where we're going as a school. So I think more so than him teaching or preaching his vision for the school and for the program, I think it's important that he already, as he said, when he gets out of the holidays and he gets back to Auburn and hits the ground running, reaching out to those coaches and vetting out those coaches that he said who have already reached out to him, determining who's the right fit, who fits his culture, fits the culture he wants to build here, and also getting those guys to be messengers to those recruits and those kids for what they want to build at Auburn. I think that's the biggest thing, because more so than any press conference, they're going to hear it from the coaches themselves. Those kids are. So it's important that he hits the ground running as it pertains to building his staff and then getting his coaches on the same page, same mission to move forward with the program.
Yeah. B, what about you?
Yeah, I don't think we fall too far behind by waiting a week, maybe a week and a half to start announcing some of these hires. I think there are probably some smaller conference schools, maybe some people that he knows personally that need to finish out their seasons. That might be in a bowl game. You need to let them finish that out first. And that also, there may be some coaches on a higher level that may be, if not in our conference, in another Power 5 conference, they need to finish out their bowl games. So not just the Western Athletic Conference, but the Mountain West. But like there are a bunch of people who need to get done working, and then he can go, all right, you wanted to get in. Let's go ahead and talk about you getting in. And I think the biggest thing is we're going to have to look at, once he starts announcing those names, what is their track record? And it's going to be more about philosophy, because let's be for real. Nobody's going to have a track record. If they are an unknown to the SEC, then everybody's going to look down on it with a little bit of doubt. But it's really going to be about, what have you done where you were at? What was your philosophy? I don't think anybody, when the search was early, it was Stoops and Urban Meyer. But really, at some point, you have to do good where you're at. And that's your audition for the big gig. Utah, I mean, would you have thought that Urban Meyer would have done what he done at Florida just because he was successful at Utah? I mean, we've got to give these people a chance, whoever they are. We've got to say, all right, you're the head coach. You believe in what this guy does. You believe in what that guy does. Now go sell it to the kids. We've got to give you a chance. It's not like we got a choice. Go sell it to those kids. Get the kids you need. And he mentioned this. We want people who want to be here and want to be in that system. And that's really, really important. I don't think Byron Cowart for a minute wanted to be here after Muschamp left. I don't think he wanted to be here when he got here, because he had that kind of trouble adjusting because Coach Gardner was hard on him and all that stuff. You got to have people here who want to be here. And as long as he gets people who are competent coaches, who know how to identify the players and the talent that work for the system they want to run, I am still confident that as long as that happens, we will be at least good, because like you guys said, we haven't been recruiting poorly. We've been recruiting well. He just has to maintain and identify the talent that's going to work for his system. Right. I don't think we fall behind, because signing day isn't for another, month and a half. So we got time for him to get those guys in, make those pitches, and start picking up some steam.
Well, I agree with that, everything you just said. At the end of the day, it all comes back to player development. Mm-hmm. If you can't get a guy, develop a guy, and then put the right guy on the field, none of the rest matters. That's what Gus was missing. That's what we're hoping to see as fans moving forward in this thing. So, Coach Harsin is on. He's on, right? He's hired. So we're behind him, and we want to see him be successful. And I just think it starts with what he focused on primarily in this conference. What I heard, what was the loudest thing to me in everything he said was player development, right? His job number one is Bo Nix. Let's be clear. Yeah. Job number one is Bo Nix, or whoever is going to play QB beside Bo Nix. So if Bo turns into the player that Gus always thought he was, and Gus just wasn't the guy to get him there, I'm all for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right. If he's not, I want to see them move on quickly.
Yes.
Right. And if it's more of the same, us holding on to a guy who's clearly not getting it done, and a coaching staff that's unable to move on for whatever reason, because as fans, we're sitting here thinking, is the next guy really this bad that we can't put the backup in? Because that's a problem as well, too, which points back to player development. Mm-hmm. You either are misevaluating or you're not developing.
Or not recruiting well either.
Right. Right. So if you're misevaluating, you're not really recruiting well. Mm-hmm. Because even though a guy comes in highly rated, if he's not ready to go, then why did you recruit him?
And you talked heavily about bringing the right people in, whether it's a player or coach.
Right.
That was something that stood out to me as well. And you want people who have the talent. You said we're going to go after the best. You want people who have the talent, but also have the attitude that I'm coming in to compete. Right. And so if you're doing that, then you know that, hey, I should never get comfortable as a starter in my position, any position, whether it be QB or line. If I'm not doing my job, I know that there are people behind me that can push me or get me out of the way, and they'll take my spot. And if you can create that attitude on the team to where I got to win every down or win every moment just so I can justify my position in my spot, I think you've done well establishing that culture with those kids. And someone like Bo or whoever becomes the quarterback knows that I have to perform and I'm not entitled to this position.
Right. Well, we certainly have a lot to talk about moving forward. So as things start to come out, we will be back with you all to discuss. As always, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when we're going live or dropping content for you. The War Report on Twitter and Instagram, TW Report on TikTok. As always, War Eagle.
Wait.